the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore.
You're listening to Lombard Trucking.
When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to episode 162 of the Lombard Trucking Show, your place where freight and fitness link up just like DNA. I'm your host, Michael Lombard. Glad to have you guys here. Appreciate you if you tuned into the last episode. If you have not listened to episode 161 yet with Alex Bradley and episode 160 with Matt Johnson, those are some of the most powerful stories we've had on with Matt Johnson, his run across Texas to help, in support of veterans and veterans finding their way back into finding community, which helps with identity. And Alex Bradley on a very similar mission, really raising money towards the fight against, mental health issues that are going on in this country, which also falls in back with how we need to be having better conversations, and intentional ones that are just quite literally checking in on the people we care about and having open and honest, vulnerable conversations with them. So if you haven't listened to them yet, definitely go back. They're well worth your time. They're two great causes worthy of your support. And even if you can't donate, just following their social media pages and sharing it is, again, a great addition to the mission. And Alex has made that very clear. But either way, really stoked to go in a direction with this video, given that, when it comes to this show, we talk to a lot of drivers, we talk to a lot of brokers, we talk a lot about business. A lot of talk about, we just had the VP of corporate strategy at Truck Stop on, and how much they like to work with owner operators, and Truck Stop wants owner operators in their businesses to succeed in a lot of different ways. And I think that this is an avenue I kind of haven't dipped myself into too much, and it's one I've become more interested in as recently. I recently in my own life have started working with a financial advisor to help prime ourselves up. I work in the coaching industry where I am constantly preaching to people about, whether it's weight loss or weight management, and the idea of you got to know calories in, calories out. And it's the same thing with your truck as an owner operator. You need to know your cost per mile, you know how much you make, how much you spend. But what we kind of don't go into is also kind of how your money can work for you in different ways, and also planning for the future. I know a lot of people who start businesses, the idea of starting a business is maybe creating something that you can live on, a legacy. And so I'm excited to dive into, I think is a kind of probably a part of the finance world and investing world that's not talked about enough, that seems to be pretty ironclad. And it's a topic that I'm super stoked to dive into, but I'm going to, talk a little bit less and welcome our guest. This is somebody I met at the Texas Trucking Show, and I thought it was really awesome that this individual was there as a resource especially for drivers in this industry. So without any further ado, our next guest on the stage, Christianna Mason. What's happening?
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
No, I appreciate you being here. And where are you tuning in from?
I'm tuning in from Miami, Florida.
I mean, you really can't beat South Florida any time of year.
Especially in the winter.
Yes, the winter is where people from my home state in the Northeast, that's where I think the term is snowbirds. That's where they all flee to they'll be down there within the next few months.
Yeah, it's definitely much busier here during snowbird season, but I can't blame them. It's where I want to be in the winter.
Yeah, I think it's definitely where a lot of people would be. But yeah, I want to thank you for jumping onto the show, taking time out of your day to talk to us. And I mean, let's kick it off though. What's really important is who you are and who we're talking to. So I'd love to hear your story and kind of walk us up to how you got into the position you're in.
Absolutely. So when I first was introduced to gold and silver is when I was a teenager. So started learning about the business, about the industry, the history of it, and have always had an interest in it and have always been involved in this business in some way. When I went to school, I studied accounting and started working for a Big Four accounting firm doing consulting after college. So I spent time helping Fortune 100 companies, private equity, buying and selling other companies. So working on really large transactions, which was really, really interesting. But I missed the individual component of finance in these transactions. And so my favorite were always when we were looking at owner-owned businesses that private equity was looking to invest in. And so I just felt like it was time for me to make a change and do something that was more aligned with my interests, and I could serve people on a more individual level. And so that is when I made the move full-time into gold and silver. And so what I do now is I help individuals and families understand gold and silver, how it can work for them, and just to be educated, because the most important thing is that you feel like you understand what you're investing in. There's so many different things out there. There's so much jargon, and there's just so many things that everyone can understand, and it's simple and it's straightforward, but they just need the avenue to do that.
No, that's awesome. So are you originally from South Florida?
No, I grew up in the Northeast, so very used to those winters too.
Gotcha. And where did you end up going to school for accounting?
I went to the University of Alabama.
Okay, so from the Northeast, went to school down south. And that's all. It's good. I encourage young people all the time to try to leave their hometown, because it's what I did at 18 with joining the military. It's definitely a good benefit. You said you were introduced to gold and silver as a teenager. In what way? How did you hear about it? What was it, something your parents did?
So that's actually really the reason for the business. So if I'll take you back to 2008 in the financial crisis, and so one of the companies that was involved in that was Lehman Brothers, and that's actually where my dad worked. So we lived through that financial crisis, and one of the things that people don't necessarily know is that if you worked at Lehman Brothers, you were required to save some of your compensation in company stock. So everything that you've been saving for all the years you worked there that was in company stock just tanked. And that happened at other companies as well. And so, he saw the devastation for our family, other families, everybody he worked with, and also everybody totally unrelated to that company who was suffering, because it's the everyday American who suffers during financial crises. And so he went on a mission to understand what is really safe and what can people do to protect themselves the next time companies are irresponsible, governments are overspending, and what has worked throughout history. And so that's when he founded St. Joseph Partners, and I began learning about it and then being involved in the business from the beginning.
Oh, so St. Joseph Partners was started by your father.
Yes.
Oh, that's an awesome story. I don't think it gets because social media was what it was in 2008. I think if social media was what it was today in 2008, I think that there's so much more, and there's so many more stories. And I think there'd be a lot more eyes on what's kind of going on with money and spending. And I think people are very critical on spending now. It definitely dictated the last presidential election spending and where kind of American dollars are going. But I think if the amount of cameras, voices, and stories, if they were able to be amplified on a platform like TikTok or through podcasts, I really don't think when I say I lived through it, I graduated high school and then I went right to boot camp. So I didn't really see it. I was lucky enough to where, my dad's business was, in small parts manufacturing. And I don't really, as far as what I could see, I didn't see any sort of really pain or struggle on that end. I'm sure there were struggles in different ways, but here he is, still in business 17 years later. So it was survivable. But I think the 2008 financial crisis, I don't think people remember just how bad it really was for a lot of people. I think the movie The Big Short does a good idea in it. And it's wild to think that a movie like The Big Short, and I think the stories from 2008, how nobody's gone to prison over kind of what happened in 2008. But that's, it's remarkable to hear that, your father went through probably one of the, the most life-changing and groundbreaking, earth-shattering experiences ever, and then emerges out on the other side by asking the right questions. And then he goes ahead and, founds the company that you're working for. That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely. It happened to so many families, and history is cycles, right? And so when something happens, something similar is going to happen again in the future. And so how do we learn from it and make sure, we're not, and anyone that we can, share this with isn't impacted the same way.
Awesome. And so, I mean, you mentioned, your father looking at what has worked throughout history. I'd love for you to kind of dive in the philosophy behind gold and silver and other precious metals. What is, historically, what has made them the most reliable, I'd say asset to lean on?
Absolutely. So there's one fact above all others that makes gold and silver unique, and that it's the only asset that has survived for 5,000 years with a 100% perfect track record, meaning it's never gone to zero and it's always had value. And that's something that other assets just can't say, right? That have that kind of history and that performance. And so when you think about gold and silver, why are they valuable? It's because they actually have intrinsic value, right? There is a finite amount of gold and silver that is in circulation, that's being mined, that's being found. So it's something that, can't be printed more of. You can't just create it out of thin air. And so there's this a natural scarcity, right? But it's also then the applications for it too, because it's valuable. Also industrial applications as well, especially more and more in technology with silver. But so when we really think about gold and silver as precious metals and as money, it's been used for trading throughout history. So you don't have to trade, chickens for eggs and, different things like that. You can use that to exchange, and that it has value. Because if you're handing over a product or a service that you've worked hard for, you want something of value in exchange. And what we've seen in history time and time again is that currencies collapse. And so what that means is the dollar or whatever that currency isn't valuable anymore. And so if you think about even just 100 years ago in Germany, it was the Weimar Republic, and people were using wheelbarrows full of their currency to buy a loaf of bread because it had become so devalued. And so again, we've seen that hundreds of times throughout history. And so what can people turn to and trust and also accept? It's gold and silver. And so, there's a lot of stories and a lot of different cases, but the main purpose of gold and silver is to protect your savings. It's not that it's going to be an incredible investment and do well, even though it is, right? It's doing incredibly well. But the purpose of it is to protect your savings. So that way, everything that you're putting away, working hard for, still has value when you go to use it in a couple of years, when you're in retirement. You want to be able to trust that everything you've been preparing for to use it for, it's available to you still.
No, that's good. Yeah, 5,000 years. Actually, it makes me curious. And if you don't know the answer to this is that's fine. But I'm curious. Pre 5,000 years, obviously there was probably other things that got traded. But I'm curious what made gold and silver valuable in the first place? Was it vanity? Was it just because it was, beautiful? Was it just as kind of civilization started taking shape? I'm not really. I'm just always interested in that. I didn't know if maybe that's something you've dove into. But when did gold actually? People were just like, yeah, this is worth me giving this, precious metal to somebody for 5 cows. When did what was the philosophical shift where people are like, yes, this is what I want. This is what makes me trust people.
So what I know about 3000 BC is that ancient Egypt was using gold as a symbol of wealth and for royal artifacts. So it became associated with wealth, and that's what I know of how it started. And so when it has that kind of association, the fact that it is finite and that it is beautiful, I think that really helped it. But then it wasn't until 700 BC when actually in Turkey, minted the first gold coins in standardized trade. So it wasn't always in a standard format. It was, used in different sizing and different quantities. But that's the early history that I know. I'm sure there's a lot more out there in terms of the psychological and philosophical changes throughout those times. But that's just a little bit of the origins.
Yeah, I find it's funny to think. I mean, Egyptian royalty was like, this is like, we have access to this. Like, so they had the access. And so the general public was like, wow, our kings slash who they believe to be gods are wearing this, using this gold. We're going to find value in it. And it's almost so basically, I mean, if rich people stopped driving Lamborghinis tomorrow, Lamborghinis may become more affordable in a certain way. I guess maybe that's a shift. If the rich people aren't doing it, yeah, I guess that's the calling sign that where it becomes more affordable to you. But that's just me thinking out loud. But awesome to think. I mean, it's pretty. You can't really deny when something's never gone to zero. It's like, and it's been relied on for 5,000 years. You kind of, you can't say it about anything else. It kind of makes it stand out. But so 3,000 BC all the way up to today. So I mean, your father, he starts St. Joseph Partners because he sees this as an answer. So who is St. Joseph Partners, and what do you guys do?
Absolutely. So St. Joseph Partners is a precious metals brokerage firm. So what that means is that we deal in physical precious metals, so gold and silver, coins and bars. On paper, not ETFs, the real gold and silver. And what we do is we sell it to clients who are looking to protect their savings. And we also can help them with storing it as well, depending on where they'd like to keep it. And so we work with people individually or families together to help them with that.
Awesome. And now I do have to ask, so you own gold and silver, St. Joseph Partners. You own the metal.
Yes. We practice what we preach. We invest in physical gold and silver as individuals, as a company, for our clients, alongside our clients. It's incredibly important, and we believe in it. So that's why we're doing it too.
And I remember we were talking before the show. So people can actually buy coins from you.
Yes. We also do mint some as well. So if you think about different images on coins, we also make our own. We have a couple different designs that are really popular that we manufacture. So, that's also something really important to us is, building more manufacturing jobs back in America and supporting that as well. So I've also spent time living in the Midwest for that side of our business too. So, there's so many great areas of the country, and I think the resurgence of manufacturing is just going to be incredible for the country.
Awesome. So I've got to ask. So, I mean, that's what you guys do as a firm. Well, you said you can mint the coins. I'm curious, do you do any custom images? Like, can we get some coins with trucks on them at all?
Absolutely. We do custom design work for companies, nonprofits, individuals.
All right. You and I are going to talk offline after this because I've got some ideas, and I have some of my own vanity we might do, and Truck Parking Club at the same way might have to do it. So, but yeah, let's kind of get into kind of what your day-to-day looks like. So like your day-to-day at St. Joseph Partners, what does it look like working with your clients? I say, we'll rip it right now. Say I'm Mike Lombard. I'm looking to work with St. Joseph Partners. What does that conversation look like? How are we going to engage? Like I'm like, hey, I have X number of dollars in my savings account. I'm looking to make sure that it's protected, as you said, because really gold and silver is to protect your savings, what you've already built. What is that conversation going to look like?
Absolutely. So you would give us a call. We always have real people that you'll speak to, or if we're already speaking in a little bit more into the conversation of what you'd like to do. And then we talk about your savings as a whole. So when you think about savings, it's not just savings in your bank account. It also might be your retirement account. If you've saved anything in an IRA, especially for truck drivers who are independent and savings that way, that's something you also can buy gold and silver in, which not everybody knows. And it's a way we help a lot of truck drivers, police officers, teachers, firefighters, so through the retirement avenue. So we would talk about just the different things that you have done for savings, if you have investments, and just kind of get an idea of where you are. So then we can help you with the best thing for you. So then we'd also talk about your goals, right? What are your goals financially? What are your philosophies for yourself as an individual? And then talk about, okay, what makes sense gold or silver, gold and silver percentages. And then we get into the different types of gold and silver and, what your preferences are, share a little bit more about pros and cons of different pieces, and then help you get to a decision that you're excited about.
No, that's awesome. So you mentioned IRAs, and so it actually, another question popped in my mind. So you guys offer IRA compatible, like precious metal accounts?
Yes, absolutely. So if you want to start an IRA with precious metals and start contributing to it, we can do that. Or if you have an IRA, you can transfer a portion or all of it into a precious metals IRA and use that to actually get physical gold and silver.
Oh, so if somebody already has an IRA right now and they decide, okay, I kind of want to, I don't trust the market. I think things are weird or going on. Tariffs are scaring me, whatever people are saying, they're able to, just like if I was to, like this happened to me, like I had an IRA, I had a retirement thing with one company. I left that company, moved to another, and I was able to move that money without any sort of penalty. And so people can do that same thing if they're involved in this, whether it's John Hancock or something like that, and they're deciding they want their money to go over here. They're able to transfer that money into a precious metals IRA without any penalties and any issues with the government.
Exactly. There's no tax consequence because it's going from one type of IRA to another. So there's no out-of-pocket cost or any taxable event.
No, that's awesome. So I mean, I'd be remiss to not ask this at least. So what, I mean, gold and silver are doing really well. And I was like looking at that these past couple of weeks. What's your overall outlook on gold and silver over the next like 3 to 5 years?
So I think we're honestly just at the beginning. It's done exceptionally well, and we have clients who have had exceptional returns over the past couple of years. But honestly, I think this is the beginning of where it's going. If you think about why gold and silver does well, it's because other things are not, or they're not reliable. So the dollar is losing value every day. Everything that's being saved in the dollar, you're losing purchasing power. We're continuing to print money. We have a debt with zero plan to do anything about it. I think right now it's over 36 trillion as of today. And so all those different reasons are the perfect storm for what we've seen in history every time when a currency collapses and loses value. And it sounds really scary, but it's not the end of the world because it's happened hundreds of times. The US is actually on its third currency. The dollar is the third currency. And so it's just a cycle of history. And if you think about in those cases, and when gold and silver is what people go to rely on, that's when the prices go up. So can I say for sure that it will happen? No. Do I know when? No. And nobody can tell you that, but there's a lot of outlook on in the near term it going up to 4,000, and even by this year or next year from different firms who really specialize in pricing and forecasting. But I think we're at the beginning for both metals.
Awesome. And I feel like you guys might get this question a lot. And so questions are going to pop in my head when I have dope conversations like this, because I'm not talking about gold and silver every day. Maybe I should start talking about gold and silver every day. Talk a little bit less about Napoleon and freight and fitness, but neither here nor there. So, say you're working with a potential new client and they want to hear your, what's your pitch versus crypto versus this? Like, oh, well, I keep hearing about this and my friends keep talking about crypto and this and that. I feel like this is a conversation you're probably having a lot because I think people overall are definitely scared about their money. People who've lived through 2008, a lot of drivers have lived through a really tough, there's been a current freight recession that is really, for lack of better terms, still ongoing. So what does it look like of gold and silver versus crypto? What's kind of the pitch to be like, hey, hey, crypto's not bad, but here's why we're better. What does that conversation look like?
So just in a headline, it's not crypto or gold, it's both. And so what I mean by that is they're not the same or interchangeable assets. So you don't want to be picking one or the other in thinking it's giving you diversification away from the dollar. They do totally different things. And you just need to understand what that is. So we've talked about, gold and silver, the history, the reliability, and that it's, historically a safe investment and for savings. So that's gold. That's why it shines. So crypto is something that's newer. It doesn't have the same track record, but it has, principles of, scarcity. It can't be just printed the way the dollar can. And, there's people who have made a lot of money in crypto. There's people who have lost a lot of money in crypto as well. So when I'm thinking in my head and categorizing it, I think of gold as safe. Crypto is speculation or gambling. It doesn't mean it can't be an absolute home run of an investment, but you just have to understand it's a different risk level. And when you're putting money into it, it may be money you never see again, or it could be money that, goes 100x depending on the time frame that you have it and what it does. We definitely can't say for sure on any of these things. Nobody can ever predict the future, but so it can be a home run, but it also could be very damaging. So you just need to understand that when you're putting money into different types of investments, having a good idea of the risk level helps you make a decision about what type of your money you put in. It may be extra money that goes into crypto or a little bit of money, and you don't put, the whole thing into crypto, but it doesn't mean you can't. Just make sure you really are learning about it and educated before you put your money in.
Yeah, no, it's good. Risk and volatility seems to be the ultimate question when it comes to crypto. But it's great of you. I mean, I think it's interesting that as St. Joseph Partners, I mean, you kind of say like, hey, it's not one or the other, it's both. That's a really good. I think that's good philosophy to have on it. So, there's so many relations to. I mean, that's with anything with money. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak.
And Mike, that's the only thing that everybody in finance agrees upon. Everybody has their opinions. Everybody has the things that they think they have. There's so much financial data, but the one thing everybody agrees on is diversification and not putting your eggs all in the same basket. And so whether it's gold, crypto, and there's other things too, right? All your eggs shouldn't be in gold and silver either. You want to have that diversification, and different people are going to be able to offer you the education and the expertise to do those different types of investments. But, you want to make sure you're looking at a lot of different options for yourself.
And I think that kind of answered my next question, because another thing popped in my head. We were, a friend of mine and I, we went for a run this morning, and we were talking about, and we were running through downtown Austin and near the state capitol, and we were jogging and yapping as we do, and we were actually, we were talking about, because a lot of the buildings at UT have the family names on them. People, the donors to University of Texas have, the donors' families' names on it. And most of those donors' family names come from oil wealth. It's oil money who does it. And the oil and gas industry is 2/3 of, I believe it's about 2/3 of like the revenue that the state of Texas really makes. And so when we, gold and silver, as you said, can't be printed. You can't really make more. I was going to kind of ask you, next question was the conversation between, how come, why shouldn't I bet big on oil and gas? Because even though there's this push for green energy, I mean, if the oil and gas industry was to collapse tomorrow, like say, I'm a proponent, I've dove down the rabbit hole of Nikola Tesla and this idea of free energy and all that stuff, not to get too into the weeds, which we do that sometimes on the show. But I think that there's always truth in the middle to that, where energy is probably more or less could be free, and where if the oil and gas industry just ceased to exist, like we're talking about like a civil war. I mean, the unrest because of oil and gas like funds education in the state of Texas. It funds so much. And so oil, the way you described gold and silver sounds almost like what oil and gas is. Like you can't make any more of it. It's very valuable. It's still needed. Like people hold it in high value. If you got oil, it means you've got money. If you got gold, it means you got money. And is that another, hey, you should be involved in both? Or is there kind of like stay away from this type of thing too in your conversations?
So, that brings up two thoughts. So the first specifically on oil is whether it is oil and gas or any other industry, you do your research and then, get invested when you feel educated. So if you think about the biggest opportunities, it's when everyone else thinks there's nothing and you should stay away. So countries right after they've had huge economic collapse, war, all of those things create opportunities because nobody wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And then the people who are willing to invest in those situations can make a lot of money. It doesn't mean every investment works out, but just because something maybe isn't as popular or mainstream, or there is a push for a different type of energy, it doesn't mean there isn't huge value in the oil industry. So I think it's the same with anything. You do your research on what type of investment you'd make, because there's different ways to invest in that industry and how that may be a return for you. But I don't think there's anything that shouldn't be on the table for research and education to get yourself started.
No, that's awesome.
Then, second thing, just wanted to share with you, when you're talking about when you see the buildings, right, with family names on them that are coming from oil money, those are the stories we hear about gold and silver also, and like that change families for generations. And if it's okay with you, I'd love to share a couple stories about a couple of different families that I think it's interesting to hear, and it really paints a good picture of what it can do for a family if you do or don't have gold and silver.
Yeah, I wanted to get right into some success stories you have. I still have some other questions, but I'd love to kind of hear, we've been talking for 30 minutes. Let's go into kind of the reward. Like, we've been talking about why it's good. Let's share some of those success stories about how good kind of leaning into gold and silver could be.
So I'd love to tell you the first story. This is from a senator in North Carolina. And so his family had a ton of businesses and a ton of timber. And so they were extremely successful. And over the years, they started losing everything. The businesses weren't doing well. They were selling off land to pay for things. And he found in an old drawer some gold that his grandfather had purchased. And that was enough for them to save their home. And so when you think about that, how devastating it is to lose everything, but also, the fact that he was able to save his home because he had just a little bit of gold and silver. So I would imagine in his mind, he feels like, he just lost everything and he was a failure, right? And his role in the family at that generation, but, he still was able to keep a roof over their head, and that's what did it. And so in contrast, then there was another individual who before the Great Depression, in the roaring 20s, saw gold and silver, thought it was something, historically it was a good thing to buy, and started buying it. Everyone around him was saying, you don't need it. Everything's doing so well. And then the stock market crashed, the Great Depression. And guess who came to him to borrow money? The US government. And it was JP Morgan. So you think about that, it was him as the individual. And so, that right there, changed, the course of the country, and also, his name in history forever. And so those are some bigger examples of generational. But we have truck drivers that we're working with now who over the past couple of years have been putting some money into gold and silver. And I have this one client, I just was talking with him a couple of days ago, and his return is about 64% from what he actually bought gold and silver at to where it is now. And so, what that can do then over the long term, because this is short term right now, it's going to change families for generations.
No, that's good. That Great Depression story, I'm just trying to think, like I'm visualizing in my mind about how like the gentleman with gold and silver is being laughed at. Like, how are you not right? Like everything's like famous last words. And, and then all of a sudden, people are jumping off of buildings, and JP Morgan's looking for money. US government's looking for money. The US government was like asking the mafia for money, like during those time periods. It's a wild, if I could go, like, if there's one point in history I wish I can kind of go back to and have some drone footage and really see what was going on, especially because it was, my family's trucking company, survived the Great Depression, Lombard Brothers Incorporated, which I think is, so it's like, I'd love to have drone footage to see how they navigated it. So, you have clients who are drivers. You were at the Texas Trucking Show. I'd love to get into that. So, it's times have been tough in this industry. There's a lot of good people, myself included, who have gotten off the road, whose businesses, there's an entire section on the FreightWaves website, on FreightWaves homepage, of bankruptcies that have been happening in the industry throughout the last several years. I was on the verge of bankruptcy, towards the end of 2023. Like, that was something that I was looking at doing as an option. And so, from the way this conversation is going, there's a way, this seems to be something that can help an owner operator a business owner, I mean, a company driver themselves, just working like as a company guy, similar as how anybody who's working for a company or a corporate job can also work with you. But yeah, how is this a way, you were at the Texas Trucking Show. I'm curious, what brought you to the Texas Trucking Show, and what is, because I mean, that people in your industry, I feel like a lot of people in your industry aren't there a lot. There's a lot of finance people around. There's a lot of CPAs who definitely want to help out motor carriers. I think there's a good chunk of CPAs who are very, they're very motivated to help owner operators run their businesses well. And any trucking company definitely needs a CPA and an accounting team. It's very hard to do yourself. So yeah, what is what's the pitch for you? What's your why for wanting to help drivers?
So it's a couple of different reasons, but it's just a pleasure to be there and get to meet everybody, because these are hardworking Americans who are business owners. They're driving the economy, and they're such a cornerstone of everything that's happening in the U.S. economy. And those are exactly the type of people that we want to help. So we also work with police officers, firefighters, EMTs, teachers, and truckers are one of those groups that we want to make sure that the education, the opportunities are there, because there's often so much jargon and just nonsense coming from the finance types about different types of investments and what to do. And it's the everyday person, truckers, that we want to make sure they have the opportunity to protect themselves, because they're working so hard, right? They're the backbone of the United States in terms of, what they're doing, what they're providing. Same with manufacturing, right? It's just so important that they have these opportunities. When we think about before the U.S. came off the gold standard, whether it was truckers or someone working in manufacturing, they could take their dollars to the bank from their paycheck and get silver in exchange for it, right? And so silver has also been, the cornerstone investment for middle class over the years. And it's so important to protect that, right? It's one of the best things about the United States that we have that. And so we want to just make sure that, especially truckers who are owner operators and, they have the risk of, running their own business. That's just an additional level of, risk and opportunity that you have beyond being an employee. And so having this for yourself personally, or even for your business, investing some of your business savings as well in gold and silver, can really make all the difference when you have those tough times. Because there are, we have clients who have fallen on hard times, and if they sell sometimes a little bit of their investment, that will get them through when there was another option for them. And so we've seen that over the years as well, because it's not only the trucking industry, that has been having hard times, or that will in the future, right? It'll be every industry at some point.
Awesome. So do you kind of work with people so are you technically, for example, all right, I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. If I say I'm an owner operator, I own a 5-truck fleet, and I'm looking to make sure my business is kind of getting some protection. I want to have something in this. So where, cause I've met guys who have had 5-truck operations, and then it became very difficult. So they just went back down to themselves, one truck, one truck motor carrier. They were able to kind of sell the assets. And so they're in the position where they're back up to 5 trucks. They want to save their money again. Do you work with people like just like a financial advisor would? Like, do you kind of, do you come up with kind of like how I worked with a financial advisor? Do you work like a financial advisor where you'll kind of get, where you'll kind of almost like you would an accountant or maybe a CPA would? Do you get all their information, how much they make, their expenses, and kind of, do you do budgets for them as well? Or do you kind of just only deal with the investments? And if you can't answer that, that's perfectly fine.
So we're not financial advisors, so we wouldn't necessarily have the same type of conversation as you would with a financial advisor. But what we specialize in is gold and silver. So in terms of how does that fit into your overall financial picture, as much as you would like to share with us, then we can, better help you with the gold and silver portion of it. And so when I have a full picture, I can, do a lot more in terms of giving you different ideas of things that are possible to do with gold and silver, things that you wouldn't consider if I didn't have the full picture. So when I do, I can, be a lot more helpful. But if somebody wanted to come to want to talk to me and said, hey, I have X number of dollars. I want to invest in gold and silver. Can you help me? Absolutely. Then we'll have that conversation in that scope and, what's the best thing for them to do with that particular amount of money. But I do find that when we are having bigger conversations about the overall picture, there's a lot more that we can do to help people because, as you're saying, if they have an individual truck versus if they have 5 trucks, you not only have, maybe your individual personal savings, you then also have your company savings as well. And that's something that you can do separately, right? You could have some savings for your company in gold and silver and yourself personally. And so when we get into that type of conversation, then those options are available because we can know the information and can talk about it.
Awesome. Let's kind of get into a little freight and logistics talk because I'm curious about it because you said you at St. Joseph Partners, and then I got one time for like as we get towards the end, I got a couple questions left, so I hope I still got a little bit of your time because they just kind of pop up. But you guys are a broker, but you also said you're a mint, so you own you have the gold and silver on hand, which and I believe the term is vaulting or like a vaulting solution. What would be the difference? What's the difference between somebody going through your vaulting solution or them wanting personal delivery, like wanting to physically have it on hand? Is there a difference? Is there something you recommend?
So people can do both, right? So if somebody, let's say you and I, Mike, we're using you as an example, we're talking about what you'd like to do and you'd like to have it delivered to you, we'll ship you the metals, gold, silver, whatever it is. And then maybe you say the next time you're making an investment, I don't really want to have any more here. I'd like to store it in a private vault. We only work with a few that meet our standards for security. They're audited, they're insured. And so then you can store there as well. So we have clients who like to do both, some who only like to do one or the other, but we can help with both. And so the minting is a different side of it. It's the manufacturing portion of it, actually creating it. And so, that goes to clients, whether it gets delivered to them or wherever they'd like to have it sent or into a vault. But people often will do a mix of both.
Awesome. That was going to be next question. I was going to ask where is the gold? I was going to say, is it in Fort Knox? Where, yeah, I don't want to give anybody some, I think it was Die Hard with a Vengeance where they go after, where they're trying to get, they're trying to rob it. They make the Fort Knox comparison. Is the gold in Fort Knox or is that undisclosed?
So for Fort Knox, they actually were talking about it, doing an audit, and is the gold really there in Fort Knox? They kind of seemed to fizzle off. So haven't heard anything. And I don't think we have confirmation one way or the other if there's anything there. I hope for the country's sake that we do. But I think it's good to be skeptical if hasn't been anybody looking at it and saying it's there in a long time and auditing it. We should just, keep that in mind when we're thinking about what the financial future looks like for this country.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, your guys' gold isn't there. So you work with, so there's companies that do this. Like there's like companies own vaults where this stuff is stored, similar to jewelry.
Yes, exactly. So private vaulting companies. So different from, doing a security deposit box at a bank. It's a private vault that specializes in it. So they do regular audits and they're insured for what's there.
Man, I need to, if you can connect me with somebody who works at a vault, there's somebody who I'd love to have on the show. I'd be curious to learn about the supply chain side of precious metals, because as you said, you will ship and deliver this stuff. How are you guys moving metals? Are there trucking companies that move this? Is it UPS? How does your gold and silver get moved?
So it depends on the size of the movement, right? So if it's something that it could be LTL, it could be a full truck, could be armored car, or it could be through UPS or FedEx, depending on what it is, right? So if you were ordering it, we could ship it to you. It's insured, requires a signature upon delivery to make sure you receive it, right? Can't get left on your doorstep. But that's how people can receive it.
Awesome. So a couple different ways. It's like there's nothing crazy, but are there jobs out there for drivers where they can get into hauling gold and silver?
So as a specific niche, I'm sure there definitely is. I would say my understanding is that it's through companies that do other types of driving anyway. Like it's not their only thing that they do. If it's LTL, if it's something that's going to be larger and it might move into being in an armored car, which then is a different type of business. But that's my understanding of it for the driver perspective.
No, got it. And kind of last question I want to dive into. I mean, I can't help but notice the name of your firm, which is St. Joseph Partners. And so, I mean, I know this is something your father started, but I'd say, I mean, there must be certain values that the company is founded on. And I'm curious if that was, what the intention behind calling it St. Joseph Partners was. What was the intention on calling it St. Joseph Partners instead of, Mason's Partners or the Mason Brothers, precious metals firm? What was kind of the intention behind calling it St. Joseph Partners?
So a few reasons, but the most important is that, we're a Christian company and that's very important to us. And, our values are lived out every day. We pray together as a company. And so we wanted to make sure, we were honoring the Lord in everything that we do. And so that's the first reason. But another reason for it being specifically St. Joseph is actually he was one of the first gold custodians in history. So if you think about the wise men, they gave Jesus gold as one of the gifts. And so St. Joseph was the caretaker and custodian of that for him. But, it's very important to us. And, we love to share our faith with our clients. Many of our clients like to talk about faith with us as well. So, it's really a blessing to be able to do that.
No, I think that's awesome. I wanted that to be on the record. I think it's super important. I think it's great when businesses kind of stand up for those values and stand up for what they are, especially in an industry as, and this isn't describing you guys, but the financial world and the stock market world and really the entire system of the Federal Reserve itself is immensely corrupt, and it's not good by any means. Like it can be messy. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. I mean, I remember the Occupy Wall Street, movement and some of something like the 2008 financial crisis. The things that led up to the 2008 financial crisis were not founded on Christian values. I think we can put it that way of the timeline of it. Whereas, so I think it's important, and I think it's really awesome that you guys stand up for that, especially me sharing those same beliefs. So I think it's really powerful. And I kind of wanted to ask: does that kind of go in? Is that a main motivator or driver for you, like in your day to day? Because I mean, what are you, as you talk to clients, what are your guys' views on the Federal Reserve and the monetary policy, like as it relates to the values of your company?
It's all interrelated. So if you actually think about gold and silver, it's outside the financial system. And so that's one of the many reasons why it's so great for people, is because it's not tied to everything happening with Wall Street. Somebody else isn't in control of it, who's making poor decisions. And it's also not enriching them at your expense, right? It's an investment that you own outright, and it's not somebody making fees off of you or different things like that. So, there's wonderful people who are financial advisors and in that world who really want to help their clients and help people. But there's also many, many people who, are not looking out for the best interests of other people and are looking out for their own interest. And it really does come at a cost. So that's one of the reasons. And if you think about, people who know the most about monetary policy and what's happening, it's central banks. And so it's the banks of individual countries. And what they're doing is they're buying gold in record amounts over the past couple of years, setting records in how much physical gold they're buying. And so if you think about it, the insiders are buying gold, but maybe they're not telling everybody else to do it because then it's cheaper for them to buy it, because the more people who are buying it and paying attention, the higher the price goes. And so this kind of goes back to our conversation about, gold at the beginning, and the Lamborghini example you made, and it's more affordable now than it might be when more people are buying it. And so what we can do is learn from the people and see what they're doing, who know the most, even if maybe they're not necessarily sharing that information widely about how important it is. So that's where we come in, right? That's our mission, is to make sure every person understands that. And it's not just for central banks and people in the industry.
Yeah, you always need to be weary when the experts will vehemently tell you not to do something because yeah, the banks aren't telling you to do it. And there's not a lot of people I know in the finance world who will say, "Oh, bet on gold, bet on silver." Like there's it isn't the most attractive. You know, what's attractive to people is the tech booms or these little yeah, whatever some sort, the Cinderella stories of like stock explosions, like, oh, you should really get in on this pharmaceutical or this is about to explode. Nobody wants to bet because again, I think there's a gambling kind of aspect view to finance where of risk versus reward, where when it comes to gold and silver, there's really no risk. I mean, we've been talking for 50 minutes. When I listen to this, I don't hear any risks about gold and silver. All I hear is it's just like, yeah, you're not going to get rich overnight, but this is going to really help you and your family out down the road. Like it's like, hey, it's always going to be there for you. Not like, hey man, if you get at me now, like I'm going to 10x you and you're going to get this many returns. Like there's something a little bit more humble. And that's why they do it. But yet all the banks are buying it. Of course they are, which makes total sense. I've got 2 questions left for you.
Mike, just if I could share one thing before those 2 questions. And, I just want to make sure everyone understands, though, there's nothing without risk, right? So I definitely can't sit here and say there's no risk to buying it because the price of it could go down after you buy it. It doesn't mean I don't believe it's going to go up in the long term. Very bullish on, very solid, but there is risk. However, when you're looking at that risk compared to other assets and over such a long time span, it feels like it's basically zero, but there always is risk. And I wouldn't want anyone just to think, oh, this is 100% guaranteed, because that's being a little misinformed. So I want to make sure people do understand that, right?
No, thank you for correcting me on it. Yeah, I was just evaluating it like my own
Which
own
I appreciate because
yeah.
I think about it that way too. But I want to just make sure that every person with whatever financial knowledge they have, does understand. And then there's nothing without risk. Even if someone does tell you there's no risk, you should be most wary of those.
Yeah, I guess to compare the risk to something, it's like even Tylenol has its risks. Like, something as simple as ibuprofen. You could have side effects from Tylenol, but most likely not. But you could do it. Like even you have a risk walking out of your door every day. You have a risk driving. Similar type of risk where there's still the risk. Like it can go down, but it's like on the long enough timeline. Overall, it has a lower type of risk. No, that's good. Yeah, it's always good. I don't want to leave you on the hook or have you be like, you told me there was no risk. Yeah, somebody, and I did this. But so when it comes to, I mean, you guys can't be the only ones doing this today. Oh, actually, hey, we got somebody jumping in here. Today, I hit my silver target, 20 kilograms. I'm happy. Translate that for me if you could. So this person right here is happy to hit their silver target. What does that mean?
So I think what it means is they've been buying silver over time and they were trying to get to 20 kilograms worth of silver and they've finally been able to buy that. So I think that's what that means. And that's, a huge milestone. So congratulations to you on doing that.
Yeah, congrats and thank you for checking in on the show and dropping a comment. While we're here for over the next couple of minutes, if anybody else has a question or a brag, feel free to shout it out in the comment section. But yeah, my last 2 questions. Obviously, St. Joseph Partners, you guys aren't the only ones doing this. What kind of sets you apart from another metal dealer, broker? What's and I'm not saying you have to disparage competition, but why St. Joseph Partners? How come I should go with you guys?
So it's for, I think, the reason of trust and transparency. So we want to make sure that our clients have all the information when they're making the decision, right? So gold and silver is based on a trading price, the spot price, and then you pay over that based on what you're buying. And we want to make sure people understand that we're not selling collectible or rare things. They're buying an investment, and so it should be priced like an investment. And so making sure they have that information, what they could sell it for after, and they're not overpaying for things, and really truly approaching every person with their best interest in mind, because we know this is in their best interest, the way it's in my best interest to do this. And we want to make sure that they have the information they need to do it and make the right decision for them. And so, it's really just living out our values, right? Of being honest and transparent with them, because at the end of the day, it's their investment, it's their family, it's their future. We want to make sure they have the information to make the right decisions for them, and they feel very comfortable and confident in that.
Awesome. So sustainability wise, yeah, how big are you guys? How many employees are you up to now? And I mean, I don't know, you don't have to say how many clients you currently have under you, but are you guys nationally? Do you have offices? Like, is it just you in Florida? How many employees are you working with? Just to get, I mean, you never know. 500 people after listening to this show could flood your office. I want to make sure you got the staff who can who can field the calls.
So absolutely call away. We have our team is spread across the country in the U.S. We work with clients in the U.S. and internationally as well. So if you're not in the U.S. and listening to this, feel free to reach out to us. There's definitely things that we can help you with. So call away, and you'll always get a real person when you reach out to us.
Really? So international customers as well. Shout out to my homies in Serbia who are listening to this. So actually, if I got you for a few more minutes, so I'm curious. So the vaults that you own and where the physical gold is it like, do you have precious metals that are overseas? So if I'm in Serbia right now and I want to work with you, so you're able to work across oceans, borders. This I didn't know. This is like brand new news, because normally when it comes to like U.S. markets, like if you're a truck driver, a company, whoever, if you're working in the U.S., this seems like a sound, avenue of investment for somebody here. But if I work over, if I live in, wherever, France, and I find St. Joseph Partners, you work with international clients as well.
We do, and in lots of different places. And actually, honestly, international investors in gold and silver are buying more than U.S. investors are, because there's just a different narrative about the value of gold and silver in other countries. And it's just a little bit more mainstream, might be the best way to describe it. It's a little bit more well-known in those cultures, especially in Asia. They just really understand the value of gold. And so we can absolutely help people in other countries, depending on the country. If there's tariffs or different things like that, it may not be the best to go with us, but in certain places we work with them, and it's very easy to do. So just with all the countries out there, it's definitely an option. And then also for people who want to store in different places, like let's say you live in another country, you bank in another country, and you want to diversify into the U.S., that's something we can do. And then we do have a couple international vault options as well. So there's a lot of different things that people can do.
Awesome. I'm curious only because this country's currency is only good in about 7 other countries, but can somebody in Iran buy through you? Are there any blacklisted countries you have right now?
So anything that the U.S. Treasury has bans on trading with, obviously we're going to comply with all of that. And we do business in U.S. dollars. So we wouldn't be accepting foreign currency. So countries that are allowed to have and transact in U.S. dollars would be ones that we'd be doing business with.
I got you. Good answer on that. That's yeah, that makes perfect sense. And but yeah, I mean, let's leave with what's the best way for somebody who wants to get started with St. Joseph Partners, whether they want to get started with you personally or through their business. How can people get started with you guys?
Absolutely. So I know at the bottom of the screen there's a link to get more information, and that's trucker specific. But if you also go to our website, stjosephpartners.com, you can learn more. We have free courses on there. We also have articles from our newsletter, so they can see a lot of just information and learn. But if you just give us a call or send us an email, that's on our website, someone will reach out to you to talk with you and then, help you with the next steps, whether you are just starting out and have questions, if you've been an investor for years and want to learn more or try something different, anyone reach out and we can help you with that.
No, that's awesome. And I actually, just so it can be on the recording and I want to put it in the show notes, do you have a direct office number or extension people can reach you at?
So if you just call our main number, they can transfer anyone to me. So 610-326-2000. And if for some reason I'm not available, I can get back to somebody, or there would always be somebody else who can help. So 610-326-2000.
610-326-2000. That's your guys' main office line. They can ask for Christianna. That's perfect. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes as well as that link. Number one, I want to thank you for coming on the show. This has been an incredibly interesting conversation. This is cool stuff. It's definitely something that I'm thinking about now, and I'm definitely going to do some more research in on and see how I can get some gold and silver as well, especially with some coins. But anything else you want to leave on the record? Any final thoughts, final motivation, why we should be bullish on gold and silver? Any last little bit of stuff you want to get out in the air?
I'd say the one thing that almost every client says to me at some point in our interaction is that I wish I had done this sooner. And I really just want to share that, because as much as I want you to educate yourself, I also want people to take action, because the market doesn't wait for us to be ready. And that's in everything. It does not wait for any individual person. When the market moves. And it's just a matter of, it's an opportunity to get in at this pricing as opposed to maybe something that's, more expensive later. Doesn't mean you can't time it well and there's a little bit of a dip, but I really would urge people, to get started, because that's what I hear. I'd say 99% of the conversations is, I wish I'd done it sooner, or I wish the last time we spoke I'd bought more, but I want to still keep buying more now. So, and I also thank you so much, Mike, for having me. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you about this and get to share this, with everybody that you're impacting.
No, I appreciate that a lot. That's, I need to welcome more of these conversations, because I think the more information, the better. I think in this age, I think when it comes to content surrounding the trucking industry, we talk about, there's a lot of people who talk about business a lot, and they talk about cost per mile, but there's other things out there, and conversations like these, just what they can do is it might not solve, when I look at conversations like this, it's not giving me an immediate answer, but what it does is it kind of like opens up another vault, using a metal term. It opens up another vault in my brain where I'm thinking, where I'm thinking a little bit more critically about stuff. And big shout out to my boy, Ray Lampkins. Love it. Learning a lot. Ray's a great gentleman. He's the host of the That's the Delivered podcast. If you guys haven't checked out Ray and his content, he's got some great interviews in the trucking industry. So appreciate you, Ray, jumping in on LinkedIn. Again, he hosts the That's Delivered podcast. Awesome stuff. So this is great. Hey, and we've got a big shout out, BGM Status. He says, hello, I'm from India. So, hey, BGM, if you're looking for gold and silver, St. Joseph Partners, they'll work with you if you're looking to get in on it. But as I was saying, like, these conversations are good to help you open up how you're thinking about things, how you're thinking about money. And I think it's content that there needs to be more of. So I love having conversations like this. I appreciate it. Appreciate you and those kind words, because impact is definitely something I'm trying to have in a lot of different ways when it comes to what we do at Truck Parking Club. How much I want to set a great standard for health and fitness in the industry, and in no better way can also people feel more fit and confident than in their wallets as well. And I think that this is a sound resource of information that I can't wait to share out there to other people. But other than that, I'm going to walk this episode out, hang out for about a minute, and we'll rip this. All right, guys, that is episode 162. Appreciate you tuning in. Awesome conversation. Again, to me, it's kind of a no-brainer at this point. You really can't. I think if you're an owner operator out there, business owner, and you kind of want to protect yourself, there's nothing, you can't go wrong with having some gold and silver in your back pocket. So if you want some more information, again, I'll have the link in the show notes. Check out St. Joseph Partners. But other than that, more to come. We'll talk to you soon. We're actually going to be live again on Sunday with a good friend of the show, Aubrey, Trucking with Aubrey, who's had some fantastic stuff. She's recently been in a commercial for International Trucks. She's been making some waves. So we're going to come on and talk trucking on Sunday afternoon. But with that, guys, we are going back to the bench.